So I went and saw a hand specialist who sent me to another hand specialist. I went and saw a neurologist, and the neurologist sent me to another neurologist and said, this is way above my pay grade.
Eric Dane once said, "If you love someone, you tell them. You say it loud." Millions heard those words and cried. But nobody knew the man behind them was fighting battles that would make even the strongest person fall to their knees. Addiction, depression, a childhood tragedy so devastating it shaped everything that came after. And then, a diagnosis that would take everything from him. This is a story you are not ready for. The day everything stopped. On February 19, 2026, Eric Dane passed away at 53, surrounded by his wife, Rebecca Gayhart, and their two daughters, Billy and Georgia. What makes this even more painful is the timing. February 19, 2026, was exactly 20 years to the day since Eric first appeared on Grey's Anatomy as Dr. Mark Sloan. The character who walked out of a steamy bathroom in a towel and changed television forever was gone on the very anniversary of the moment that made him a star. He died from complications of ALS. That stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and it is one of the cruelest diseases known to medicine. It destroys the nerve cells that control every movement in your body. First, your hands stop working, then your arms, then your legs. Then you lose the ability to swallow. Then you lose the ability to breathe. And through all of it, your mind stays perfectly sharp. You understand everything that is happening to you. You feel every single moment of it. You just cannot stop it. For Eric, it had started so quietly. Sometime in early 2024, Eric noticed a weakness in his right hand. He figured he had been texting too much or maybe slept on it wrong. He went to a doctor. After 9 months of appointments with hand surgeons and neurologists, the diagnosis came. ALS terminal, no cure. Average life expectancy after diagnosis is 2 to 5 years, but for many, it is far less. In April 2025, he released a short statement to People magazine saying he had been diagnosed with ALS and that he was grateful for his family. It was calm and measured. But 2 months later, he sat down with Diane Sawyer on Good Morning America and let the world see the truth behind the composure. He told Sawyer that he woke up every single morning and was immediately reminded that this was real and not a dream. His entire right side had already stopped working. He said he felt like in a couple of months he would lose his left hand too. Then he told a story that shattered everyone watching. He described a boat trip with his 13-year-old daughter, where he jumped into the ocean but could not swim back. His little girl had to drag him back to the boat. The man who once represented physical perfection on television could not save himself in the water. His daughter had to save him. And then he said the words that connected every broken piece of his life into one devastating sentence. "I am angry because my father was taken from me when I was young. And now there is a very good chance I am going to be taken from my girls while they are very young." He wept on camera. Diane Sawyer wept. And somewhere, millions of people watching at home felt their hearts crack open. Within hours, the tributes began flooding in from every corner of Hollywood. Ellen Pompeo, who played Meredith Grey beside him for 6 years, shared a recorded message where she said she remembered him walking onto set as McSteamy and having instant electric chemistry with him. She said she immediately just fell in love with him, that she was so proud of him, and that she loved him so much. She also shared something that tells you exactly who Eric Dane was as a man. After his diagnosis went public, Ellen sent him a text saying she was there if he ever wanted to talk. 30 seconds later, her phone rang. He did not text back. He called. Because even with his world falling apart, he wanted to hear her voice, not read her words on a screen. Patrick Dempsey, the man who played his on-screen rival Derek Shepherd and who was one of his closest friends in real life, had been calling and texting him throughout the entire illness. Dempsey told Parade magazine in January 2026 that Eric was such a wonderful human being with a great sense of humor and that he was so intelligent. He called the whole situation heartbreaking. He had even tried to get Eric a role in his Fox series, but the ALS had progressed too far. Sam Levinson, who created Euphoria and gave Eric what critics called the role of his lifetime, said that working with Eric was an honor and that being his friend was a gift. Paul Walter Hauser, who worked with Eric on the film Americana, posted something so raw and honest it stopped people in their tracks. He wrote that they had tried to book gigs together, tried to laugh at the pain, and tried to stay sober. That last line, tried to stay sober. 5 words that told the world there was so much more to Eric Dane's story than anyone ever saw on screen. But the darkest chapter of Eric's story did not begin with ALS. It began decades earlier, in a small house in San Francisco, when a 7-year-old boy's entire world was destroyed in a single moment. The boy who was told to stop being a child. Eric William Melvin was born on November 9, 1972 in San Francisco, California. His father, William, was a Navy veteran who became an architect and interior designer. His mother, Leah, was a homemaker who raised Eric in her Jewish faith. He had a younger brother named Sean. For the first 7 years of his life, things were normal. He had a family, he had a father. Then, sometime around 1979, everything fell apart. Eric's parents had separated, and William Melvin died from a gunshot wound. The circumstances have never been fully clear within the family. Eric told Gulf Times in 2014 that his grandmother believed it was an accident, but that everybody had a different opinion on what happened. He described his father as a troubled soul. Years later, on the Armchair Expert podcast with Dax Shepard, he described it more directly as self-inflicted. Eric was 7 years old. His mother told him to be brave and to become the man of the house. A 7-year-old boy was told to stop being a child because there was no one else left. Then, just 4 months later, his maternal grandmother died from a sudden aneurysm. She was the woman they had been living with. 2 of the most important people in his world were gone within months of each other. Eric later reflected on what those losses taught him. He said it teaches you not to really trust anything because everything can go away in a second. That wound would follow him through every relationship, every success, and every failure for the rest of his life. He struggled to form connections with other men because he never had anybody to show him how. He became a chameleon, always trying to be whatever he thought the other person wanted him to be. When it became clear his grades would never earn him a college scholarship for water polo, he made a decision that took more courage than most adults ever show. A month before graduation, he quit school and moved to Los Angeles with $40 in his pocket. He arrived in Hollywood as a teenager with no money, no connections, and no safety net. What followed was 13 years of rejection that would have broken most people. The longest 13 years. The road from that apartment in Los Angeles to becoming one of the most recognized faces on television took 13 long and brutal years. Eric's first on-screen appearance was a tiny part on Saved by the Bell in 1991. After that came a string of guest spots that paid just enough to keep him alive. The Wonder Years in 1993. Married with Children in 1995. Roseanne in 1996. Small roles that nobody remembered from a face that nobody recognized. He dated actress Alyssa Milano, who helped him get a recurring role on Charmed as Jason Dean, which lasted about 10 episodes across 2 seasons. He played a doctor on the short-lived ABC drama Gideon's Crossing in 2000 and had a role in the CBS telefilm Helter Skelter in 2004. None of it broke through. For over a decade, Eric Dane was just another handsome guy in Hollywood waiting for a break that might never come. Then, in early 2006, He was cast in what was supposed to be one single episode of Grey's Anatomy. Just one. He would play Dr. Mark Sloan, a cocky plastic surgeon who had an affair with Derek Shepherd's wife. In his first scene, he flirted with Meredith Grey. Derek punched him in the face. The audience went absolutely crazy for him. Shonda Rhimes saw what she had and immediately promoted Eric to a series regular for season 3. His debut scene as a regular featured him emerging from a steam-filled bathroom wearing nothing but a towel. The female interns on the show gave him a nickname that would follow him forever: McSteamy. Over 6 seasons as a regular and approximately 145 episodes, Mark Sloan became one of the most beloved characters in Grey's Anatomy history. His friendship with Derek became the show's most authentic male relationship. His love story with Lexi Grey became one of the most heartbreaking romances the show ever told. Eric won a SAG award with the ensemble in 2007. After 13 years of being nobody, Eric Dane was suddenly one of the biggest stars on television. But fame did not fix anything inside him. In fact, it made everything worse. What most fans never knew, what the tabloids only scratched the surface of, was that Eric Dane had been at war with addiction since long before Grey's Anatomy made him famous. It started in high school. He told Dax Shepard that he began using substance not because he enjoyed it, but because the people around him did. He wanted to belong. He wanted to fit in. So he did what they did. The storm came during the 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild strike. Production shut down. Suddenly, Eric had endless free time and nothing to fill it with. He told Rebecca he was going to smoke one joint, just one. He told her that if things ever went sideways, he would just go back to AA. That single joint cracked the door open. Substance became alcohol. Alcohol became pills. The spiral was fast and quiet and devastating. On the Armchair Expert podcast, he said something that made listeners go completely silent. He said, "If you take the whole 8 years I was on Grey's Anatomy, I was messed up longer than I was sober. And that is when things started going sideways for me." In 2009, a private video involving Eric, Rebecca, and a third person leaked online, and the tabloids had a field day. The humiliation was enormous. In 2011, while Rebecca was pregnant with their second daughter, Eric checked into a treatment facility for a painkiller addiction that had started with a prescription after a sports injury. By 2012, the toll of everything had become impossible to ignore. He later admitted that he did not leave Grey's Anatomy so much as he was let go. He said he was struggling and that he probably was fired. Mark Sloan was killed off in the season 9 premiere, dying from injuries sustained in a plane crash. In his final conscious moments, the character spoke words that would become some of the most famous in television history. If you love someone, you tell them. Even if you are scared that it is not the right thing. Even if you are scared, it will burn your life to the ground. You say it, and you say it loud. Eric Dane had been saying those words on screen for years. In his real life, the silence was deafening. He had lost the biggest role of his career. He had nearly lost himself to addiction. And then something came for him that was even harder to fight than the substances. Something invisible and suffocating that he never saw coming. The weight he could not lift. After Grey's Anatomy, Eric landed the lead in TNT's The Last Ship, a military thriller produced by Michael Bay. 5 seasons from 2014 to 2018, playing Captain Tom Chandler. It was not Grey's-level fame, but it was honest, steady work. A chance to prove he could lead a show. A chance to rebuild. Then, in April 2017, production suddenly shut down. Not because of a budget problem, not because of a scheduling conflict, because the star of the show could not get out of bed in the morning. Eric Dane was battling severe clinical depression, and the thing that made it even more confusing and frightening for him was that he would not pinpoint a reason. He went on the Today Show that summer and spoke about it with a rawness that men in Hollywood almost never show. He said he took some time off because he was dealing with depression, and that he felt very conflicted about it because he did not feel like he had anything to be depressed about. He described waking up and just not being able to function. He started taking an antidepressant called Pristic, and he said the name out loud on national television. In 2017, for a leading man in Hollywood to publicly name the medication he takes for depression was almost unheard of. But the depression did what depression does when it goes unchecked for too long. It seeped into every corner of his life, including his marriage. Rebecca Gayheart filed for divorce on February 16, 2018, after 14 years together. The addiction, the scandal, the public humiliation, the depression that turned the man she loved into someone she could barely reach. It was too much. But here is the part of this story that proves love is more complicated and more resilient than any script could ever capture. The divorce was never finalized. They separated. They dated other people. They lived apart. But they never fully let go. They co-parented Billy and Georgia together. Rebecca wrote an essay for The Cut in December 2025 where she described what was left between them. She wrote that their love may not be romantic, but it is a familial love. That is not the end of a love story. That is a love story that refused to follow the rules. He had survived addiction. He had survived depression. He had survived the loss of his career and his marriage and his sense of self. And just when it seemed like the hardest chapters were finally behind him, a doctor sat him down and said 3 letters that changed everything. The fight of his life. Before ALS stole his body, Eric Dane experienced something rare and beautiful. He found the role that finally let the world see who he truly was beneath the surface. In 2019, Sam Levinson cast him as Cal Jacobs in HBO's Euphoria. Cal was a wealthy, powerful man who presented a flawless image to the world while secretly living an entirely different life behind closed doors. A man eaten alive by repression, shame, and decades of buried truth. It was the polar opposite of McSteamy. He told Glamour magazine, "I understand what it is like to lead a double life, to have secrets. I have certainly had my struggles with alcoholism, substance addiction, mental health, and I know what it is like to have to put up a facade and have an external experience not match the internal experience." Every word of that was true. Even after the ALS diagnosis ripped through his life, he kept working. He filmed scenes for Euphoria Season 3, which is set to premiere on April 12, 2026, just weeks after his death. It will be one of his final performances. The cast and crew rearranged everything to accommodate his declining body, because they knew what this meant to him. In November 2025, he also guest-starred on NBC's Brilliant Minds, playing a firefighter diagnosed with ALS who hides it from his family. And then Eric did something that turned his personal tragedy into a mission that was bigger than himself. He became one of the loudest ALS advocates in the country. He partnered with I Am ALS on a campaign pushing for $1 billion in research funding. He went to Capitol Hill and looked lawmakers in the eyes. He was named ALS Network Advocate of the Year. He said he was going to fight until the last breath. Time magazine named him to their Time 100 Health list for 2026. By October 2025, he was using a wheelchair full-time. His final social media post, published in late December, read that this disease takes something from him every day, but he will not let it take his spirit. On January 24, 2026, he was too ill to attend the gala that was being held in his honor. He spent his last months fighting not for himself, but for the millions of people who would face this disease after him. And the outpouring of love that followed his death proved that the world understood exactly what kind of man they had lost. Drop a comment and tell us what Eric Dane meant to you. We want to hear it all.